Hello, Red Earth team. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to our weekly conference call. Appreciate you guys taking the time to join us live. Those who have, those who are catching this on replay, welcome as well. I want to continue to bring just great content to the team to help you guys as you're kind of in the trenches. And I know right now it probably feels a lot like the trenches. There's seasons that we go through, and this one, I know for many of us, it feels like you're kind of in a battle, right? You're in a battle for just your own personal space and sanity, much less the responsibilities that we have as those who work for these organizations to help sell homes and bring value to people's lives through these communities that we're all a part of. And so I want to speak today to that. But first of all, just to say thank you guys for those of you who are here. I had reached out to some of the team members and just kind of asking, hey, what's going on? How are you guys feeling? What's the situation? And it's really difficult to ignore all that is going on in the world around us right now. And so I want to say that I recognize with you what is all going on around us in the world. And there's a lot of very troubling things. And it would be one thing if we only had one thing to actually focus on. But there's like 10 things that potentially they present a challenge to us. And so how do we begin to navigate our daily responsibilities, our own personal sanity, with the kind of crazy, chaotic stuff that's around us? And so I wanted to go back. I know when all of this started with the pandemic, I had spoken about using this season as an opportunity and how to kind of guard ourselves from a lot of the distractions. But it's been going on now for 4 months, I guess, in a lot of cases. And so it just seems like, is there an end in sight? And, just when we kind of get our hopes up, which is something I talked about, something else seems to come down the pipe that gets our hopes down. And so how do we continue to kind of navigate and walk through this season? Because the truth of the matter is no matter who you are, no matter how mentally stable and strong you are, when you start taking these kind of emotional punches again and again and again and again, at some point in time, you just go, okay, enough already. I've had enough already. And I really believe that's where a lot of folks are right now, is I've just had enough already. And so I wanted to speak to that through the lens of what we're going to title as focus. Focus. And I'm going to give kind of a story that I thought was a great example of focus and something you can go watch. So maybe a little bit of homework for you. And then 3 practical ways that we can really begin to own our focus. So with all that's going on around, one of the only choices you have is to choose what you focus on. You can't choose what numbers are doing from an infection standpoint. You can't choose how the media reports or responds. You can't choose how your neighbor acts. You can't choose necessarily what's in your news feed. You can't choose these things. But you can choose what you focus on. And so I know that for me, I have a little bit of a different tendency in that bad news and stuff like that, it doesn't tend to get to me as much, right? So I can look through a news feed and see 7 negative things, and I can kind of just flippantly go, that's crazy, and move on. But my wife is not the same. My wife is very empathetic. She's a very compassionate individual. So when she sees a bad news feed, it really attacks her heart. And so my wife had to make an active, conscious decision not to focus on that by getting off social media. Okay? Now, I'm not telling you to do that, but I am telling you that if your tendency is to get on social media and it's taking you away from who it is that you know you want to be and the positive energy and emotions in your life, then you probably should consider the same. And we justify behavior like this because, well, if I'm offline, then how am I supposed to connect with clients, right? We justify it. You know, it's like the I'm pretty blunt today, but it's like the alcoholic who's like, I don't have a problem. I've got to socially drink with my clients. Well, you're socially drinking 7 nights a week and it's affecting your life. There's probably something there that needs to be addressed instead of justified. So I think a first challenge kind of question to you today is, what are you justifying that needs to be addressed? What are you justifying that needs to be addressed? See, we justify a lot of behaviors in our life that actually need to be addressed. And that's kind of a pretty forward statement. I realize that I'm not trying to lack compassion here because it's real. We all struggle with this stuff. But there are behaviors in my life that I often want to justify when I really just need to address them. And I really need to change how I'm approaching it by choosing what I'm focusing on. And so that's kind of a starter point. There's a great documentary, and it's of a gentleman named Alex Honnold. Alex Honnold is a rock climber. Now, I know for a lot of the ladies, this might not be kind of in the wheelhouse here, but it's a profound documentary, and it's about this gentleman who's a rock climber, professional, best in the world rock climber, and the documentary is called Free Solo. And I don't know if you've seen this before, but there are so many incredible life applications from this documentary because what this guy did was the unachievable feat. He climbed in Yosemite National Park. It's like a granite wall called El Capitan. That's the name of it, the Captain. It's like the beast rock climbing wall, 3,000 vertical feet. And if you saw a picture of it, it would blow your mind. He climbed it without a rope. It's called free climbing. It's one of the most dangerous activities in the world, and this guy did it. And on the surface, you go, well, he's just an idiot because he just climbed this without a rope, and he got lucky, and he's probably going to die. And that's kind of where most people go to justify it rather than to address actually what's happening here. So what's really neat about this documentary, and first of all, just to watch it for the sheer sake of like the adrenaline in it is incredible. Some of the photography in it is just remarkable because there's guys on ropes on the mountain who are like watching him, come up the mountain without a rope. And it's some of the most profound, breathtaking images you've ever seen. But the interesting thing here is I thought about this in relation to our call today, is the power of focus. So let's talk about this guy, Alex Honnold, professional rock climber, and what it took for him to actually achieve this feat. Because people see, oh, he climbed it without a rope, no big deal. The dude spent 7 years preparing for the climb. 7 years. He climbed the mountain. It's like thousands of times over the course of 7 years. And he mapped out every single step. Every foothold, every handhold, every single step was mapped out. He knew that mountain so well because he had intently focused 7 years of his life on the moment that the documentary got made. See, we see the documentary and don't realize the 7 years that went into it, the 7 years of focus. He actually fell during those 7 years a couple of times. And one, he broke his foot, and one, he broke his back, like a vertebra in his back. And it was like every single time that he got close to climbing this mountain without a rope, something happened that kept him from it. But his sheer just focus and his determination and his discipline to rehab himself after breaking his ankle, to just continue to study the mountain. I mean, the guy treated this in such a professional, dynamic way. Like he had a journal where he wrote down what he did today, what part of the mountain he climbed, what he remembered about this foothold, how this foothold had changed because the weather had eroded a little bit of it. And he had the entire 3,000 feet mapped out and focused. So when he climbed it, he had done it thousands of times before, and now he was just doing it without the safety of a rope. And it is nerve wracking when you watch it, but I think it's so applicable to where we are right now, because we're expecting to climb the mountain. And I'm doing, for those who can see my face, I'm doing little air quotes around it. Climb the mountain. We expect to climb the mountain without a rope, just because out of sheer, like, well, I'm just going to do it. But we're not willing to put in the focus that it takes, the 7 years of preparation, in order to be ready to do that. So what happens is when we say, hey, I want to make 20 sales this year, or, I want this better lifestyle for my family, or I want to work with this many clients. When we set all of these goals and objectives, what happens is we fall and break our ankle, from a metaphor standpoint, right? With the pandemic and COVID-19 or whatever, and we go, oh, well, it's probably not meant to be. And we justify giving up on that goal because of the circumstance, rather than addressing the issue and kind of persevering through. And I think a lot what's going on right now is a lot of people are justifying behaviors because of the difficult circumstances, instead of being willing to be the one who's going to push through the adversity, who's going to really become a professional at focusing your time and your energy on where it is that you want to go. So right now, what I would tell you guys is the professionals and the amateurs are being divided. Right now in the earth, the professionals and the amateurs are being divided. And that's not a condemnation of any one person. It's just to say that in a moment of difficulty and adversity, the professional harnesses their focus. They don't justify behavior. They don't give excuses. They recognize the difficulty, but then they keep moving forward. Now, it's also interesting to note in this documentary that this guy attempted to climb this mountain multiple times. And he would get up to a point, he would go, it doesn't feel right today. And he would come back down. And so it's not about just the sheer determination and perseverance. You have to be so acutely aware of the environment around you, your own emotions, the mental situation that you're in, your heart condition, and you just know, you know what, today's not the day. I'm having a bad day, and it's okay to have a bad day. And you don't have to just push through. That's when you're going to make a mistake and you're going to end up really hurting yourself. And so what you have to have is an awareness, right, of the surroundings. But you have to have this focused concentration of the heart on what it is that you're here for and here to do. And you got to keep on going when you meet those places of adversity. So Alex Honnold, free solo, do check it out. Take notes and listen to what he says about how he approached that mountain, and think about your own life, the own metaphorical mountains in your life. 7 years of preparation, just all the hard work, the focus, the perseverance. I'm telling you, it is a homework assignment from me to you if you want to really become professional in your field versus just an amateur. Because there's a lot of people who just go and climb mountains with ropes and all this kind of stuff. But this dude is literally the best in the world. And so you have to ask yourself, is that who I am in my industry? Am I the best in the world? Do I want to move toward that level of excellence in my life? Or am I okay just to put on a rope and just kind of climb a mountain and be cool with it? You've got to make that decision. You have to make that decision. But don't pretend like you want to be the professional when you're only willing to put in kind of an amateur mindset. And this isn't Matt going, hey, work harder, work harder. It's saying decide who it is that you want to be and what you want, and then have a determined focus toward that direction, and don't let things get you off track. And when you see a news cycle or relationships or whatever, it's okay to have a bad day, but you can't spend all of your time focusing on this stuff, giving away your genius. Like you're awesome, you're incredible. And when you shift your focus and start giving away your awesomeness to all of the news cycles and all the different things that are going on, and really challenging stuff too, right? I mean, there's situations, right? The other day, my infant daughter swallowed something wrong and she started choking. And there's a moment of panic and there's a moment of real fear. And you pat her on the back and she coughs it up, right? And you keep on going. There's moments like that are stressful, that are challenging. But what I don't need to do now is live with the fear that every time my daughter eats, she's going to choke on something. Do you see the difference? See, that's what happens is when we lose our proper focus, we end up thinking all of this negative stuff, and we focus on the negative stuff. Well, the negative stuff actually comes because we're opening the door for it to come, because that's all we're thinking about, right? So you have to shift your focus And you have to keep your focus, your heart focused intently on where you're going and what it is that's good about the situation and what you can control about the situation. Not what's happening to you, but how you're going to respond. And so, kind of a little practical exercise here that I want to challenge you guys in as you navigate this in your own life. And listen, I guess the bottom line is you have to ask yourself, am I okay with where I'm at? You know, am I happy with the level of kind of frustration or anger or fear that I feel? Am I okay with, what's going on? And if you are, and you're comfortable to live where you are, then nothing's going to change. But if you say, no, I'm not, I really want to change these dynamics about my life, I really want to move in a better direction, then you have to commit to your heart to it and step into it. Otherwise, it's just going to drag you down the path. So how do you focus, and how do you avoid being taken off track by so many of these things that are keeping you from do that? I've titled this The Power of Focus, and then I've said the mind, the eyes, the heart. The mind, the eyes, the heart. Okay? There's great biblical application here. If you think about it, Paul writes in his letter to the New Testament church, I think in Rome, he says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It happens in the mind first. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Okay? There's also biblical context scripture that says, take your thoughts captive. So you have to ask yourself, what am I thinking? What am I allowing myself to think in my mind? If you think fear, failure, worry, adversity, negativity, then fear, failure, worry, and negativity is going to dominate your day. And you're going to constantly be in a cycle of trying to keep those things from happening. And I guess the greatest analogy here is the glass half empty or the glass half full. How do you look at that? Do you look at a situation and automatically think the worst? Or do you look at a situation and automatically think the best? And that takes training. That's what most people don't want to train themselves on, how to think. They just respond and react to their environments and situations and then wonder why the outcome is not what they want. It's because they didn't take the thought captive. They weren't transformed by the renewing of their mind. So it starts in the mind first, right? And once you decide in your mind, once you make a conscious and subconscious decision and you move in that direction, then it becomes about the eyes. Then it becomes about the eyes. What do you see? What do you see? That guy did not see a 3,000-foot wall that was unscalable. He saw a series of 400 different steps that he knew, that he studied, that he knew he had to take in order to get the 3,000-foot wall. You see, when your mind goes ahead and is renewed, then your eyes begin to follow. You see, your eyes can lead your mind, or your mind can lead your eyes. So we can live by what we see, the 3,000-foot wall, or we can live by what is unseen, which is the 400 tiny steps it takes to scale that wall. And so this is the powerful dynamic where folks have to do the work of renewing your mind and then letting your eyes follow along in suit, instead of your eyes going, oh my gosh, this situation causes my mind to get off track. Then you're out of kilter. So your mind, right, begins to think differently so that your eyes begin to see differently. And even when things are are unseen, it's like, think of it this way. Sports, people love sports analogies, right? Michael Jordan, greatest basketball player that ever lived. There's been all these documentaries coming out, The Last Dance. I don't know if you guys watched that or not. But Michael Jordan, when they were down at the end of the game, what did he see? He could have said he saw that they were down and he saw defeat, and therefore his mind was not in alignment and they lost. But what I think a guy like that had trained himself is that he thought in his mind that he was going to win. He knew he was going to win. He had trained himself to think that he was going to win. He was going to succeed. So what he saw then is an opportunity to make the game-winning shot or whatever the case might be, right? And so when you see these great athletes in the final moments of games and they're down and they're trailing and if the odds are against them, how do they do it? They've thought intently about that situation before, and they've created an expectation in their mind of victory, and then they see the situation differently as an opportunity, and then they win. It's not the other way around. It's not based on what they see. It's based on what they have thought about the situation that leads them to the victory. And we have to be the same way. We have to be the exact same way when we engage in client conversations, when we engage our day. You have to do the work in your mind first, then your eyes follow. And the final thing is the heart. Because the truth is your heart is going to follow the loudest voice. If the loudest voice in your life is you can't, you suck, you're going to fail, everything always bad happens to me, the world's getting worse, blah, 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 your heart's going to believe that because that's the loudest voice. And you're going to live in a state of fear and anxiety and worry and frustration because of what it is that your heart is listening to. Instead of letting your mind be transformed, seeing things from a different perspective, and say, you know what? This may be a difficult situation, but it is an opportunity. This is making me into a better person. I know that there are good things ahead for me, right? And this is not just some kind of like ritualistic training where you look in the mirror and you go, this old Saturday Night Live skit, right? He's like, I'm smart enough and I'm good enough and doggone it, people like me, that Al Franken character, right? When he's looking, that's not it. It's not just about this self, talking good to yourself. It's truly about letting your heart believe that if God created you, right, that he's got good things ahead for you, that it's not just words on a page, that you can step into the belief there. And anything that's blocking you from that belief pattern is trying to keep you shackled to fear, worry, panic, anxiety, and all the other things. And so today, I just want to encourage you guys that to do the work of focus by renewing your mind, letting your eyes see something different, and guarding your heart from all of the different stuff. Because if you don't guard your heart, your eyes are going to follow just what's naturally seen, and then your mind is going to live in a constant state of stress, anxiety, panic, and it's not healthy. It's going to cause cancer, it's going to cause failure, and it's going to cause hopelessness, and it's going to drag you into this kind of place that you weren't intended to go. Right? So I know this is kind of a different approach to maybe how we would normally approach a sales meeting or like a motivational thing, but I want to challenge you guys to do the hard work of renewing your mind and being intently focused on your purpose and being intently focused on what is happening in your life that is good, and then letting your heart live in that space rather than the other space that's going to keep you shackled and locked down. So that's it for today's call. As always, if you guys want to talk through this on a more personal level, my phone number is 910-619-4644. But I hope you guys have an excellent week. I appreciate you being here today, and you guys go out there and continue to be excellent.